dreamers. Previously, on Tenchu Tales, Rikimaru thwarted an assassination attempt on Lord Gohda, discovering a disturbing connection to his supposedly defeated enemy, Onikage. Ayame infiltrated Minister Hamada's estate, revealing his alliance with the sorceress Lady Kagami. At Gohda Castle, our heroes made a chilling discovery. Princess Kiku has been secretly held captive, her life force being drained through a ritual to power a gateway between worlds. Now, with the blood moon rising, Rikimaru races to the temple of the sleeping dragon to confront Lady Kagami, while Ayame attempts to break the ritual's hold on the princess. So, get cozy as we witness the conclusion of Tenchu Tales, Mystery of the Blood Moon. The princess's chamber had become a battlefield of wills. Ayame knelt beside the floating form of Kiku, the proxy doll placed on the floor between them. Lord Gohda stood nearby, his face etched with the agony of a father watching his child suffer while powerless to help. "There must be something we can do," he said, his voice hoarse with emotion. Ayame studied the red energy barrier surrounding the princess. It pulsed in perfect synchronization with the doll, confirming her suspicion that the two were connected by more than mere appearance. "The ritual works by creating a sympathetic link," she explained, recalling lessons from her training. "What affects the doll affects the princess. Lady Kagami has been drawing the princess's life force through this connection." "Then destroy the doll," Lord Gohda urged. "No," Ayame countered sharply. "That might kill her instantly. The connection works both ways. Harm to the proxy transfers to the original." She examined the doll more closely. 5 small crystals had been sewn into it, 1 at the forehead, 2 at the hands, and 2 at the feet. Each pulsed with the same red light that surrounded Kiku. "The anchor points," she murmured. "They must be severed carefully, one by one." Drawing one of her smaller blades, Ayame prepared to extract the first crystal from the doll's forehead. Her hand hovered, hesitating. If she made a mistake, the backlash could kill the princess instantly. "Wait!" came a voice from the doorway. "You'll need this." Sekiya stood there, blood trickling from where Rikimaru had struck him earlier. In his trembling hand, he held a small vial of clear liquid. Ayame was on her feet in an instant, blade ready. "Stay back, traitor." Lord Gohda looked shocked. "Sekiya, my most trusted advisor?" The elderly man's face contorted with anguish. "Forgive me, my lord. I was not myself." He took a faltering step forward, then fell to his knees. "The potion will neutralize the crystals. Please." Ayame didn't lower her guard. "Why should we trust you?" "Because I am fighting it even now," Sekiya gasped, his eyes flickering between their normal brown and an unnatural yellow. "Onikage's possession is not complete. The part of me that has served Lord Gohda for 30 years still remains." He extended the vial toward them, his hand shaking violently. "I cannot resist much longer. The binding spell grows stronger as the blood moon rises." Lord Gohda moved toward his advisor, but Ayame blocked his path. "My lord, It could be another trap. If I wished you dead, Sekiya said with sudden clarity, I would only need to wait. When the gateway opens, all within the castle will perish anyway. His eyes flickered yellow again, and he cried out in pain, clutching his head. Take it, quickly, he gasped. Lord Gohda made the decision, stepping around Ayame to take the vial from Sekiya's hand. I have trusted this man with my life for 3 decades, he said quietly. I choose to trust him now. Sekiya looked up, tears streaming down his lined face. Thank you, my lord. Now go. Go far from here. I can feel them coming. Who is coming? Ayame demanded. As if in answer, shouts erupted from the courtyard below. Ayame rushed to the window to see guards engaged in combat with shadowy figures that moved with inhuman speed. More of Lady Kagami's puppets, dozens of them, scaling the castle walls. They come for the princess, Sekiya said, struggling to his feet. The proxy is damaged. Lady Kagami needs the true vessel now. Lord Gohda handed the vial to Ayame. Do what you must for my daughter. I will hold them off as long as possible. My lord, you cannot, she began. I am still the lord of this province, Gohda interrupted, drawing his sword. The sacred blade passed down through his family for generations. And I will defend what is mine. The sounds of fighting grew closer. Ayame knew they had minutes at most before the attackers reached the princess's chamber. Sekiya, Lord Gohda commanded. If you truly wish to atone, help me defend this doorway. The advisor bowed deeply. Until my last breath, my lord. As the 2 men took positions at the chamber entrance, Ayame returned to Princess Kiku and the proxy doll. Carefully uncorking the vial, she found that it contained a liquid that shimmered like quicksilver. Working swiftly, she applied a drop to the crystal at the doll's forehead. The red light within it immediately dimmed, turning blue before fading entirely. Above them, Princess Kiku's body shuddered, the barrier around her fluctuating. Encouraged, Ayame moved to the crystals at the doll's hands. Each drop of the potion produced the same effect, the red glow fading to blue, then darkness. With each crystal neutralized, Princess Kiku's body lowered slightly toward her futon, the barrier weakening. From the doorway came the sounds of combat, Lord Gohda and Sekiya engaging the first wave of attackers. Ayame worked faster, applying the potion to the 4th crystal. Only 1 remained. A scream of pain made her look up. Sekiya had fallen, a black blade protruding from his chest. His eyes, clear and brown in his final moments, met Ayame's across the chamber. Complete it, he gasped before his body went limp. Lord Gohda fought with the skill that had made him a renowned warrior in his youth, but he was being driven back step by step. 3 of the shadow puppets already lay destroyed at his feet, but more pressed forward. Ayame turned back to her task, applying the last drop of potion to the final crystal in the doll's left foot. As the red light faded, the barrier around Kiku shattered like glass, the fragments dissolving into the air. The princess's body settled gently onto her bed, her breathing shallow but steady. It's done, Ayame breathed, moving to defend the unconscious princess. Lord Gohda, bleeding from several wounds, fought with renewed determination. "Get my daughter to safety. There is a hidden passage behind the central panel." Before she could respond, a new figure appeared behind the shadow puppets. Minister Hamada, clutching the cursed sword she had seen earlier. His eyes blazed with yellow light, his face contorted in a rictus of hate. "The vessel will fulfill her purpose," he snarled in a voice that echoed with Onikage's distinctive rasp. "Lady Kagami awaits at the temple." With inhuman strength, he struck down two of his own shadow puppets to clear a path toward Lord Gohda. Their blades met with a shower of sparks, the cursed sword leaving a trail of darkness in the air as it moved. "You were like a brother to me," Lord Gohda said, parrying a vicious strike. "Why, Hamada? What could drive you to this betrayal?" "Power," Hamada replied, though the voice remained a disturbing blend of his own and Onikage's. "Your bloodline has ruled for generations, while more worthy men served in their shadow. No more." Ayame gathered the unconscious princess in her arms, searching for the hidden panel Lord Gohda had mentioned. Finding a slight seam in the wall, she pressed against it, revealing a narrow passage beyond. "My lord," she called, "we must go now." Lord Gohda, realizing he could not win against Hamada's supernaturally enhanced strength, executed a desperate maneuver, allowing the cursed blade to graze his side in exchange for delivering a deep cut across Hamada's sword arm. The minister howled in pain, momentarily dropping his guard. Gohda used the opening to retreat toward Ayame and the secret passage, blood flowing freely from his wound. "It will lead you to the Eastern Guardhouse," he gasped, pushing Ayame and his daughter toward the opening. "From there, the forest path to the temple." His words were cut short as Hamada's blade erupted from his chest from behind. The Lord's eyes widened in shock and pain. "No!" Ayame gasped as Lord Gohda collapsed forward. Hamada stood behind him, the cursed sword dripping with the Lord's blood, his face twisted in triumph. "The Gohda line ends tonight," he declared. "The princess will not escape." With the last of his strength, Lord Gohda pushed Ayame and Princess Kiku fully into the passage and slammed his palm against a mechanism inside the wall. A heavy wooden panel began to slide closed. "Save her," he whispered, his eyes meeting Ayame's one final time. "Save them all." The panel sealed shut just as Hamada lunged forward, his cursed blade striking harmlessly against solid wood. His roar of frustration followed Ayame as she carried the princess down the narrow, dark passage, tears streaming down her face. Lord Gohda had given his life to save his daughter. Now it fell to Ayame to ensure that sacrifice was not in vain. Kiku stirred in her arms, eyelids fluttering weakly. "Father," she whispered. Ayame couldn't bring herself to answer as she hurried through the passage, the sounds of pursuit growing behind them. Hamada would find a way to enter the passage soon enough. The tunnel emerged, as Lord Gohda had said, near the Eastern Guardhouse. The structure stood empty, its guards presumably either dead or engaged in the chaotic battle that now consumed the castle grounds. In the distance, Gohda Castle burned against the blood-red moon, black smoke rising in columns. Ayame set the princess down momentarily, checking the surroundings. The path to the temple of the sleeping dragon lay through the forest beyond the eastern wall, the same direction Rikimaru had taken earlier. "Can you walk?" Ayame asked gently. Princess Kiku, still weak but increasingly aware, nodded shakily. "What's happening? Where is my father?" The pain in Ayame's chest tightened. There would be time for grief later, if they survived the night. "Your father has given us a chance to save you and the province," she said, helping the princess to her feet. "We must reach the temple of the sleeping dragon, where Rikimaru confronts those responsible." Understanding dawned in the princess's eyes, followed by determination that reminded her of Lord Gohda himself. "Then we must not waste his sacrifice." As they moved toward the forest path, a rumbling sound drew their attention skyward. Above the castle, the blood moon had taken on an impossible appearance. A swirling vortex had formed at its center, reaching downward like a malevolent finger toward the temple in the northern mountains. "The gateway begins to open," Ayame realized with horror. "Rikimaru may already be too late." Princess Kiku straightened, summoning strength from some hidden reserve. "Then we must hurry. The Azuma have protected my family for generations. Now I will stand with you to protect our land." Behind them, the sound of pursuit grew louder. Hamada had found the passage. Before them lay the treacherous mountain path to the temple, where Lady Kagami performed her dark ritual, and Onikage's return grew closer by the minute. And somewhere ahead, Rikimaru fought alone against forces that threatened to overwhelm them all. The temple of the sleeping dragon loomed against the crimson moon, its ancient stone edifice transformed by Lady Kagami's sorcery. What had once been a sacred place of meditation now pulsed with malevolent energy. Black veins of power crawled across the temple walls like corrupt ivy, converging at the central pagoda, where a beam of red light connected the structure to the vortex forming in the sky. Rikimaru approached from the western ridge, having abandoned his horse when the terrain became too treacherous. The temple grounds were heavily guarded. Acolytes in blue robes patrolled in precise patterns, while shadow puppets stood motionless at strategic points, their featureless faces turned toward the surrounding forest. From his concealed position, Rikimaru studied the temple's layout. The main approach was impossible, too exposed, too well defended. The eastern wall had partially collapsed in a landslide years ago, but Lady Kagami had positioned her strongest forces there, anticipating an assault from that direction. The roof, however, offered possibility. The ancient tiles, slick with the same black rain that had fallen on Gohda Castle, would be treacherous, but navigable for one with his training. If he could reach the central chamber from above, he might be able to interrupt the ritual before the gateway fully opened. Movement in the underbrush to his left caught Rikimaru's attention. He turned, sword half drawn, only to find Tenchu emerging from the shadows. His clothing was torn and bloodied, one arm hanging uselessly at his side. "The east approach is compromised," Tenchu reported quietly, joining him in the shadows. "Lady Kagami anticipated our movements." "What of the ritual?" Rikimaru asked. "Already begun," he confirmed grimly. "The sorceress has created a gateway between realms using artifacts from the temple's sealed vault. Ancient texts on boundary manipulation, tools crafted specifically to pierce the veil between worlds." "And Onikage?" Tenchu's expression darkened. "I glimpsed the central chamber briefly. A form is taking shape within the gateway, not fully materialized but growing stronger by the minute. If the ritual completes." He left the implications unspoken. Both men knew what Onikage's return would mean, not just for Lord Gohda's province, but for all of Japan. "We cannot wait," Rikimaru decided. "I will enter through the roof of the central pagoda. You circle to the rear courtyard. There's a meditation garden that should provide cover to approach the support structures. If you can destroy the ward stones I saw positioned there, it may weaken the ritual's containment." The pair separated with a nod. Tenchu melted back into the forest, circling toward the rear of the temple, while Rikimaru began his approach toward the western wall. Using his grappling hook, he scaled the cliff with practiced ease. At the top of the peak, Rikimaru paused to survey the temple grounds from his elevated position. What he saw confirmed his worst fears. Lady Kagami had transformed the sacred site into a perfect channel for otherworldly energies. Moving silently across the temple's outer wall, Rikimaru made his way toward the central pagoda. Twice, he was forced to freeze in place as acolytes passed below, their chanting creating ripples in the dark energy that permeated the grounds. Once, a shadow puppet looked directly at his position, its featureless face turning upward as if sensing his presence. But after a moment, it resumed its patrol. The roof of the central pagoda proved as treacherous as anticipated. The black substance coating the tiles was not rain, but something more viscous, like oil infused with living shadow. It retreated from Izayoi's blessed steel as Rikimaru used the blade to secure his footing. At the apex of the roof, a circular skylight offered a view into the ritual chamber below. The glass had been removed, leaving a perfect opening surrounded by ornate carvings that now pulsed with the same corrupt energy that infected the rest of the temple. He positioned himself above the opening, peering down into the heart of Lady Kagami's dark work. The chamber below had once been the temple's main meditation hall. Now it was unrecognizable. The wooden floor had been torn up to expose the earth beneath, which had been formed into a perfect circle inscribed with symbols that burned with an inner light. At 5 points around this circle stood obsidian pillars, each connected to one of the external sites by a beam of crimson energy. In the center of the circle stood Lady Kagami, her arms raised toward the opening in the roof, chanting in a strange tongue. Her white painted face was now streaked with black veins, her eyes entirely yellow, with vertical pupils like a snake's. But it was what floated above her that froze Rikimaru's blood. A tear in reality itself hovered in the air, a jagged rip in the fabric of the world through which something was emerging. A form composed of shadow and malice, taking shape with each word of Lady Kagami's chant. Though not yet fully materialized, the shape was unmistakable, Onikage's distinctive silhouette growing more solid by the moment. At the edge of the circle, Minister Hamada had just entered the chamber, his cursed sword dripping with fresh blood. The minister's face was contorted in a mixture of triumph and terror. "The Lord is dead," Hamada announced, kneeling at the edge of the circle. "But the princess escaped with the kunoichi. They head this way even now." Lady Kagami's chanting faltered momentarily. "Fool," she hissed, her voice echoing unnaturally. "The ritual requires completion. Without the royal blood, Onikage's return will be incomplete, a shadow of his true power." "The Azuma disrupted the connection," Hamada explained, cowering before Lady Kagami's wrath. "But the princess lives. When we capture her—" "There's no time," she snarled. "The celestial alignment peaks within minutes. We must complete the ritual now." Kagami turned to a small altar at the edge of the circle where various ceremonial items had been arranged: daggers, scrolls, and vials of dark liquid. Selecting a curved knife with a jade handle, she approached Hamada. "You have served your purpose, Minister," she said, her voice suddenly gentle. "Now you shall serve one final time." Understanding dawned in Hamada's eyes, too late. Lady Kagami moved with inhuman speed, the ceremonial dagger plunging into his chest. Hamada screamed as dark energy coursed through his body. His skin began to blacken and crack, golden light spilling from the fissures. Your ambition, your jealousy, your decades of resentment toward the Gohda line. Such exquisite darkness, Lady Kagami whispered. Not royal blood, but powerful nonetheless. Rikimaru had seen enough. Drawing Izayoi, he prepared to drop through the skylight and end the ritual with one decisive strike. But before he could move, the partially formed Onikage within the gateway turned its head, impossible as that should have been, and looked directly up at him. A voice like stone grinding against stone echoed not in the chamber, but in Rikimaru's mind. "The dragon descends. Welcome, old friend." Lady Kagami's head snapped upward, her yellow eyes widening at the sight of Rikimaru poised above. With a gesture, she sent a wave of force toward the roof that shook the entire structure. Left with no choice, Rikimaru leapt through the opening, blade aimed toward Lady Kagami. The sorceress raised her blood-covered hand, creating a shield of dark energy that deflected his strike. The impact sent Rikimaru rolling across the inscribed floor, dangerously close to the gateway where Onikage continued to materialize. "Perfect timing," Lady Kagami laughed, her voice distorted by the power flowing through her. "The blood of an Azuma ninja will serve as well as royal blood. Poetic, is it not? The very one who sent Onikage to the Shadow Realm shall be the key to his return." Hamada's body had begun to dissolve, the dark energy consuming him from within. His screams faded as his physical form broke down into pure energy that flowed into the gateway, strengthening Onikage's materializing form. Rikimaru regained his footing, Izayoi glowing brilliantly in response to the dark energies surrounding him. "Your ritual ends here, sorceress." Kagami smiled, revealing teeth that had sharpened into fangs. "The ritual is self-sustaining now. Even if you strike me down, the gateway will complete its opening." She gestured to the partially formed figure within the tear. "Your old enemy returns, Dragon of the Azuma. Will you not greet him properly?" From the gateway, Onikage's voice emerged, still disembodied, but growing stronger. "Rikimaru, how I have waited for this moment. The Shadow Realm taught me much about pain, about eternity, lessons I will share with you and all you protect." Rikimaru lunged toward the sorceress, Izayoi cutting through her protective barrier with its blessed steel. The sorceress hissed in pain as the blade sliced across her arm, revealing not blood, but the same black, writhing substance he had glimpsed earlier. "You cannot kill what is already dead," she laughed, her injured arm reforming before his eyes. "My physical form perished with Tenrai. What stands before you is merely a vessel, sustained by Onikage's power." A disturbance at the chamber's main entrance drew their attention. Teshu had arrived, engaging 3 acolytes in desperate combat. Behind him, the ward stones Rikimaru had spotted earlier lay shattered, their energy dissipating into the air. "The containment is weakened," Kagami shrieked, genuine alarm in her voice for the first time. "The gateway must be stabilized." She abandoned her confrontation with Rikimaru, rushing back to the center of the circle to resume her chant. The partially formed Onikage within the gateway pulsed with renewed energy, reaching one shadowy arm through the tear in reality. Rikimaru pressed his advantage, closing the distance to strike at Lady Kagami again. This time, his blade met solid resistance as Onikage's extended arm intercepted the blow, catching Izayoi mid-strike. "Not yet, dragon," Onikage's voice rumbled. "Our reunion deserves proper attention." The grip on Izayoi tightened, dark energy crackling down the blade toward Rikimaru's hands. With a surge of effort, he channeled his own spiritual energy into the sacred sword, creating a flash of purifying light that forced the demon to release his hold. Staggering backward, he assessed the situation. The ritual had progressed too far for a direct assault to succeed. Lady Kagami's chanting had reached a fever pitch, the symbols on the floor burning brighter with each syllable. The gateway expanded with each passing moment, the tear in reality widening to accommodate Onikage's increasingly solid form. A plan formed in Rikimaru's mind, desperate, perhaps suicidal, but possibly their only hope. The ritual drew power from the 5 external sights, channeled through the obsidian pillars in the chamber. If those connections could be severed simultaneously. As if reading his thoughts, Teshu called out from the doorway, having dispatched the last of the acolytes. "The pillars, Rikimaru, they're the anchors." Lady Kagami screamed in rage, gesturing toward Teshu. A bolt of dark lightning struck, sending him crashing against the wall. He slumped to the floor, conscious but unable to move, as black energy coursed over his body, pinning him in place. sorceress declared. "Witness the return of your greatest enemy, helpless to prevent it." The gateway had expanded to nearly fill the center of the circle. Onikage's form had solidified to the point where his features were clearly visible. The demonic face that had haunted Rikimaru's nightmares since childhood, the yellow eyes that had watched Master Shiunsai die, the clawed hands that had ended countless lives. Rikimaru knew he had seconds to act. 5 pillars, too far apart to destroy quickly enough by conventional means. But there was one technique, only meant to be used in the direst circumstances, for its cost to the wielder was severe. "The heavenly dragon strike," Rikimaru whispered, assuming a stance Master Shiunsai had taught him in his final year of training. Recognition flashed in Kagami's eyes. "Futile effort," she mocked. "The pillars are warded against physical attack." But it was not a physical technique. Closing his eyes, Rikimaru centered himself in perfect stillness, then channeled all his spiritual energy into Izayoi. The sacred blade began to glow with blinding intensity, responding to his will and the purity of his purpose. In one perfect motion that seemed to bend time itself, Rikimaru executed 5 strikes so rapidly that they appeared simultaneous, each one sending a wave of purifying energy toward one of the obsidian pillars. The wards flared in resistance, but Izayoi's blessed energy cut through them like sunlight through darkness. All 5 pillars shattered in the same instant, the beams of crimson energy connecting them to the external sights flickered and died. The gateway, suddenly deprived of its power source, began to collapse inward. "No!" Kagami snarled, abandoning her chant to lunge toward Rikimaru. "What have you done?" Onikage's partially materialized form began to distort as the gateway destabilized. "This changes nothing, dragon," his voice boomed, now tinged with desperation. "I will return. The shadows always find a way." The sorceress reached Rikimaru just as he completed the technique, her clawed hands closing around his throat. The price of the heavenly dragon strike made itself known immediately. His limbs felt leaden, his spiritual energy completely depleted, leaving him defenseless against her attack. "You have disrupted the ritual, but not destroyed it," Kagami hissed, her face inches from his. "The gateway remains. With your death, we begin anew." Before she could deliver a killing blow, a throwing knife embedded itself in her back. Lady Kagami arched in pain, releasing her grip on Rikimaru. In the doorway stood Ayame, another knife ready in her hand. Beside her, supporting herself against the wall, stood Princess Kiku. "The vessel returns of her own accord," Kagami mocked, recovering quickly from Ayame's attack. "The ritual may yet be completed." The destabilized gateway pulsed erratically behind her. The demon fluctuated between solidity and shadow. With each pulse, the tear in reality expanded and contracted unpredictably, releasing waves of dark energy that cracked the temple's stone floors and walls. "Ayame, get the princess out," Rikimaru commanded, struggling to regain his strength. The gateway is collapsing. The entire temple will follow. Too late, Kagami cooed, her voice eerily calm as she turned toward the princess. Her royal blood must be drained. She moved with preternatural speed, the ceremonial dagger still clutched in her hand. Ayame intercepted her, twin blades flashing in the crimson light. But the sorceress knocked her aside with supernatural strength. Rikimaru, still weakened from the heavenly dragon strike, could not intercept her in time. It was Tenchu, breaking free from the energy binding him through sheer will, who made the desperate lunge that placed himself between the princess and Kagami's blade. The ceremonial dagger plunged into his chest. Tenchu grabbed Kagami's wrist, holding her in place as his blood spilled onto the floor. Blood freely given, he gasped, not taken by force. That changes everything. The symbols beneath them flared with unexpected light, not the corrupt red of before, but a purifying white that spread outward in a wave. Where it touched the inscriptions, they changed, transforming from Lady Kagami's dark sorcery to something older and more powerful. The light reached the gateway, engulfing it completely. Onikage's partially formed body began to dissolve, drawn back into the shadow realm as the tear in reality began to seal itself. "This is not the end, dragon," Onikage's voice echoed as his form retreated. "I will return." Lady Kagami, realizing her ritual was irreversibly corrupted, made one last desperate attempt. Tearing free from Tenchu's weakening grip, she lunged toward the closing gateway. "I'm sorry, Master." The demon's shadowy hand extended through the narrowing tear, but not in welcome. Instead, it closed around her throat. "Failure has its price, sorceress." His voice rumbled as he dragged her screaming form into the shadow realm with him. The gateway collapsed with a thunderous implosion that shook the entire temple. The obsidian shards, the inscribed floor, the corrupted altar, all disintegrated into dust. Where the tear in reality had been, only empty air remained, though Rikimaru's trained senses could detect the faintest scar in the spiritual fabric of the world, a wound that would take time to fully heal. Ayame rushed to Tenchu's side, but it was clear from his peaceful expression that he had already departed. Princess Kiku knelt beside them, tears streaming down her face as she placed a gentle hand on Tenchu's forehead. "He saved me," she whispered. The temple around them groaned ominously, stone cracking as the corrupting energy that had sustained the structure dissipated. Without Kagami's sorcery holding it together, the ancient building was quickly becoming unstable. "We must leave," Rikimaru said, forcing himself to his feet. "The temple is collapsing." Ayame helped Princess Kiku up, while Rikimaru lifted Tenchu's body. They would not leave their fallen comrade behind. As they made their way out of the crumbling temple, the blood moon above began to fade, returning to a natural silver. The black rain stopped, and the unnatural silence that had fallen over the land lifted. Rikimaru paused at the temple entrance, looking back at the chamber where his nemesis had nearly returned. The scar in reality remained, faint but perceptible to his trained senses. Onikage's final words echoed in his mind. "I I will return. This victory had come at terrible cost. Lord Gohda, Tenchu, countless guards, and innocent citizens all sacrificed to stop the demon from returning. And yet, Rikimaru knew with cold certainty that it was not truly over. The Shadow Realm existed beyond time as mortals understood it. Onikage's threat was not idle boasting, but a promise that would one day need to be confronted. Three days later, Rikimaru knelt before the funeral pyre where Lord Gohda's body had been laid to rest with full ceremonial honors. The flames reached toward the heavens, carrying the spirit of a man who had ruled with wisdom and compassion for over 2 decades. Beside the main pyre, smaller fires honored the others who had fallen: Tenchu, Sekiya, and the many guards who had died defending their lord and province. Princess Kiku, now Lady Gohda in her own right, stood nearby, dressed in white mourning robes, her face composed despite the grief that Rikimaru knew consumed her. In 3 days, she had transformed from a sheltered young woman into a ruler of necessity, addressing her father's council with a quiet authority that silenced even the most ambitious advisors who might have seen opportunity in the transition. From his position slightly behind Lady Kiku, Rikimaru surveyed the assembled mourners. Most were genuinely grieving, but some watched the new lady with calculating eyes, measuring her youth and inexperience against their own ambitions. The shadows of political intrigue never disappeared completely, even in times of tragedy. My father always said that true strength lies not in the sword, but in knowing when to sheathe it, Lady Kiku said softly, sensing Rikimaru's vigilance without turning. He also said the Azuma were his strength when his own faltered. "We remain in your service, my lady," he assured, "as we served your father and his father before him." Lady Kiku nodded. The council presses for answers about what happened. They demand to know how Minister Hamada, a trusted advisor for 15 years, could betray us so completely. "Some questions have no satisfying answers," Rikimaru whispered. Hamada's ambition made him vulnerable to Onikage's influence. Perhaps he believed he would rule once your father was removed. In the end, he was merely another tool, discarded when no longer useful. The funeral flames reflected in Lady Kiku's eyes as she watched her father's pyre. "And Onikage? Is he truly gone?" Rikimaru hesitated. "The gateway is closed, but the scar remains. Onikage was not destroyed, merely contained once more in the Shadow Realm. Then he may return one day," she said, her voice steady despite the implication. "Yes, but not soon and not easily. The ritual required specific conditions that took years to arrange. We will be vigilant." Lady Kiku turned slightly, meeting his gaze directly. "My father often spoke of the burden of rule, how each decision carries weight beyond its immediate consequence. I understand that burden better now." Her eyes moved to where Ayame stood at the edge of the gathering, watching the assembled nobles with barely concealed suspicion. The kunoichi had refused formal recognition for her role in saving the province, preferring to remain in the shadows where she operated best. The Azuma serve from darkness so that others may walk in light, Lady Kiku said, reciting the clan's oath. My father explained this to me when I was a child. I did not truly understand until now. The funeral pyre collapsed inward as Lord Gohda's body was consumed by the sacred flames. A collective murmur rose from the assembled mourners, a traditional prayer for the departed's journey to the next world. Lady Kiku joined her voice to theirs, performing her duties as both daughter and ruler with perfect grace. When the ceremony concluded, the nobles and officials filed past Lady Kiku, offering condolences and pledges of loyalty. Rikimaru noted each face, each nuance of expression and tone, cataloguing potential threats for future reference. 3 council members in particular spoke with excessive enthusiasm about guiding the young lady through these difficult transitions, their ambitions barely concealed beneath formal propriety. As twilight approached and the gathering dispersed, Kiku signaled for Rikimaru and Ayame to follow her to a private garden where her father had often meditated. Away from the political performance required of her, she allowed her shoulders to slump slightly, the weight of her grief and new responsibilities momentarily visible. The council has appointed new ministers to replace Hamada and Sekiya, she said, seating herself beside a small ornamental pond. Men of good reputation by all accounts, but my father always said, reputation is the mask one shows to the world, not the face beneath. Masks can be torn away when necessary, Ayame noted. Lady Kiku smiled faintly at the barely veiled suggestion. Indeed. Which brings me to the matter at hand. She straightened, once again the ruler rather than the grieving daughter. The official record will state that Minister Hamada led a failed coup attempt, motivated by political ambition. He died in the attempt, along with his conspirators. There will be no mention of sorcery, shadow realms, or ancient rituals. A wise decision, Rikimaru nodded. The truth would only create unnecessary fear and invite questions that cannot be answered. However, Kiku continued, I require the unofficial truth from both of you. What must be done to ensure Onikage remains trapped in the Shadow Realm? What weaknesses must be guarded against? The 2 Azumas exchanged glances, a silent communication born of years fighting alongside each other. Ayame nodded slightly, deferring to Rikimaru's greater knowledge of their nemesis. The scar between realms at the Temple of the Sleeping Dragon must be monitored, Rikimaru began. I recommend stationing trusted men there under the guise of honoring those who fell. Any unusual activity, spiritual disturbances, unexplained deaths, even changes in local wildlife behavior should be reported immediately. The artifacts from Hamada's collection must be secured or destroyed, Ayame added. Many still contain corrupted energy that could be harnessed by others with knowledge of blood sorcery. Kiku listened intently, her expression grave. And what of Lady Kagami? Could she return as well? The sorceress was pulled into the Shadow Realm by Onikage himself, Rikimaru explained. Her fate there. He hesitated, unwilling to describe what awaited those who failed the Demon Lord. She will not trouble us again. Unless Onikage uses her as he used Hamada, Ayame pointed out. A vessel for his influence. Lady Kiku absorbed this information silently, her gaze fixed on the reflection of the evening stars in the pond's still water. My father once told me that ruling is not about eliminating threats, but about recognizing which ones require immediate action and which can be monitored from a distance. She looked up at the two ninjas who'd saved her life and her province. The Azuma have always been the shadows that protect the Gohda line. I ask now that you continue this sacred duty, not just for me, but for all who live under our protection. Rikimaru knelt formally, head bowed. Until death releases me from service, my lady. Ayame followed suit, though with less ceremony. The Azuma remain your shadow, Lady Gohda. Then rise, she commanded, and hear my first directive as ruler of this province. The pair stood, awaiting her command. You will establish a network of informants throughout the province, not just in the capital, but in every village and town. Any sign of unnatural occurrences, any whisper of sorcery or demonic influence must be investigated immediately. It shall be done, Rikimaru affirmed. Additionally, she continued, I want the temple archives searched for any information regarding the Shadow Realm and methods to permanently seal the barriers between worlds. If Onikage found one way to return, he would seek others. We must be prepared. Ayame nodded. I know someone in the capital with access to restricted scrolls from the Imperial collection. Information thought lost may still exist in forgotten corners. Good, Lady Kiku said. She hesitated, then added in a softer voice, There is one more matter, a personal request. My lady, Rikimaru prompted when she fell silent. Teach me, she said simply. Not to become a ninja, that is not my path, but to understand what you face, to recognize the signs of corruption that my father missed in Hamada. A ruler who remains ignorant of the shadows becomes their victim. The request surprised them both. Traditionally, the Gohda line maintained a careful separation from the Azuma's methods, preserving deniability and the moral distance between lord and assassin. After a moment's consideration, Rikimaru inclined his head. Not all knowledge of the shadows requires walking within them. There are awareness techniques that would serve your purpose without compromising your position. You will have what you need to rule wisely, Ayame added, just as your father did. Lady Kiku rose, signaling the end of their private council. Then we begin tomorrow. Tonight, I must appear at the formal reception for the provincial lords who have come to pay respects. As she turned to leave, she paused. My father never spoke of his fear, though I know he must have felt it deeply at times. Is it a weakness to acknowledge such things? Fear is neither weakness nor strength, Rikimaru answered. It is merely information, the body and spirit warning of danger. A blade feels no fear and cannot adjust to unexpected threats. The warrior who acknowledges fear without being ruled by it holds the advantage. Lady Kiku considered this, then nodded. Thank you, both of you. After she had gone, Rikimaru and Ayame remained in the garden, watching as the first stars appeared in the evening sky. She will make a worthy ruler, Ayame observed. perhaps greater than her father, in time. If she survives the coming months, he replied. Not all dangers announce themselves with thunder and sorcery. The council has ambitious men who may see her youth as opportunity. Ayame's hand moved to her blades, a gesture both unconscious and telling. Then they will learn what happens to those who threaten the Gohda line. Rikimaru gazed toward the northern mountains, where the temple of the sleeping dragon stood silent and empty, its dark secret known only to those who had witnessed the final confrontation. The scar between worlds remained, a promise of conflicts yet to come. Onikage will try again, he said quietly. If not in our lifetime, then in the next generations. The Shadow Realm operates beyond mortal time. Then we prepare the next generation to face him, Ayame replied with simple certainty. The Azuma endure, as they always have. As darkness settled fully over Gohda Castle, the two ninja vanished from the garden, returning to the shadows that were both their home and their destiny.